Your Florida vacation just turned into a nightmare. You've been arrested and now you're facing criminal charges in the state where you don't even live. Can you go home? Do you have to keep flying back? What if you just ignore it? Hi, I'm Matthew Konecky. Now here's what people don't realize about getting arrested as a tourist in Florida. You're facing a completely different set of challenges than someone who already lives here. And if you handle it wrong, your vacation nightmare can turn into a year-long legal disaster. But here's the thing. It's way too common for people to come to Florida on vacation and leave on probation, and I'm going to show you exactly how to avoid this scenario. So make sure you stick around to the end, because this could be the difference between protecting your future and having a vacation mistake follow you for years. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down everything you need to know as an out-of-state defendant in Florida. The things we're going to cover are, first, the unique challenges that you face that Florida residents don't, and why the system isn't designed for tourists in mind. Second, your actual legal rights as an out-of-state defendant, because yes, you still have rights, even if no one's explained them to you. Third, the biggest mistake a tourist can make that could absolutely destroy your case, and I do mean destroy it. Fourth, we're going to talk about the specific strategies that actually work for resolving out-of-state cases efficiently. And finally, the strategies to avoid that vacation to probation scenario that we mentioned. Now, here are some of the questions or comments that I get a lot from out-of-state defendants. Can I just pay a fine and go home? Well, if your case is a misdemeanor or a felony, you can't just deal with it when I come back. The reality is Florida doesn't care that you live in Michigan or New York or wherever. Once you're charged here and you're in the Florida court system, you have to follow Florida rules. Now let's talk about what that actually means. First, most criminal cases require multiple court appearances. Out-of-state defendants can spend more on airfare flying back and forth than they did on their entire vacation. We're talking about thousands of dollars in travel costs, hotel rooms, lost time for work. But let's be honest, the financial hit is just the beginning. Here's what really happens to out-of-state defendants. You could have employment issues that become massive if you've got a criminal record, taking repeated time off of work to go to court appearances from Florida, and your employer might be understanding that the first time around, but when you're constantly going back and you have to tell them why you keep flying to Florida, this is going to lead to problems in your job. Family stress also multiplies. Your spouse, your kids don't understand why you have to go back to Florida or why you're not even taking them back. The financial strain for you to come back and forth can tear a family apart. Now, let's also talk about the psychological tolls. Many times when you're dealing with criminal charges in a foreign state, you're thousands of miles, you have no support, you don't know who to count on, and you might even feel like it's isolating or terrifying. One of the bigger issues with an out-of-state case is bond restrictions. Now, under Florida Statute 903-047, that gives the judge a power to restrict your travel as a condition of bond. That means a judge could tell you, you're not going to leave Florida until this case is resolved. And while that might be an unlikely scenario, it has actually happened to a client of mine. Tourists can get stuck here for months because they didn't understand their options. Now let me explain how this actually works, because this is where most tourists got blindsided. When you're arrested and you have to post bond, if the bond sets conditions for out-of-state defendants to put travel restrictions, the judge is thinking this person lives in Ohio. What's stopping them from going home and never coming back? So they may put some restrictions like surrendering your passport so you don't leave the country, staying within Florida until your case is over. They could put you on something called supervised release, where you're required to report in office or do random drug tests in the county which you're in. SOR 3, SOR 4 in Palm Beach County specifically would require them to stay. Again, they can take away your passport and say no international travel. So here's the kicker. If you violate any of these conditions, even accidentally, the court can revoke your pretrial release status and you could be taken into custody, or anytime you have interaction with law enforcement, they will issue a warrant. But here's what the public defender probably won't tell you, and if you're not entitled to the public defender, no one's going to tell you, is these restrictions aren't always set in stone. An experienced attorney like myself, who understands the needs of people who live out of state, have cases in Florida, might be able to get these restrictions modified or lifted entirely. The key is knowing how to present the case in front of the judge and demonstrate what we call community ties. Not only community ties to your home state, but community ties to our state. It means stable employment, family obligations, property ownership, community involvement. And even the fact that you retained somebody locally shows the court that you are invested in this case and that you want them to go to court and that you want to handle the things that you need to do in your home state. The judges need to believe that you have more reasons to come back than you do to run. And that's something that can be argued and showed to the court. Now let's talk about your actual legal rights. Now, a lot of times people don't realize that you do have rights even if you're not a resident of the state of Florida. First off, since 2020, Florida has been open to Zoom hearings, video and telephone conferencing, and many of these hearings can be done remotely. Every jurisdiction is different, every judge is different, but you can look at what your judge's divisional instructions are, and a lot of them are open to Zoom hearings, and in that case, that wouldn't require your travel back and forth. Many times your attorney can appear on your own behalf for certain matters, and that can be done through what's called a waiver of presence. But some hearings do require physical presence. And here's what people don't realize, that even with a waiver of presence, it still might require you to come back for an evidentiary hearing, a motion to suppress, or trial, even though under Criminal Procedure Rule 3.180D, it can relieve you of some of these requirements to come back. So even if you have retained an attorney, not all hearings will be allowed for you to appear via Zoom, and that's something to discuss between you and your attorney. Now let's talk about some of the other rights, like your discovery rights. And you have the right to see all the evidence that the state has against you: police report, witness statements, body-worn camera, lab results. This is crucial for you to have so that you can make informed decisions quickly. Now let's talk about the mistakes that destroy cases. I see all the time the thing that gets people into the most trouble is simply ignoring it. Hey, I live in Oregon. How are they going to find me? They're not going to come get me for a misdemeanor. And what do you find? A warrant gets issued. And then you get pulled over in your home state. Next thing you know, you're being held and detained to find out if Florida's going to come and extradite you. You could be literally sitting for up to 30 days in your home state while Florida makes a determination that they're going to get you. And if they choose not to, you still have the same warrant and you just sat in jail for an extended period of time. This regularly happens. And I can't tell you how many clients I've represented that have gotten into a mistake at an early age. For instance, they were here in the 80s for spring break, and 30, 40 years later, they come back to take a cruise. They go on the cruise ship, but when they come back in, they are detained by Customs and Immigration because they see a warrant that's popped up that's 40 years old. And now what? They're waiting to see a first appearance judge for a case that happened 30, 40 years ago. It happens, and it's something that we see a lot. And to make matters worse, when you're waiting to see a first appearance judge and they're looking over the case, they're going to see, hey, you fled the first time. Why are we going to grant bond again just for you to leave again? What's then going to happen is they're going to still hold you no bond and maybe give you an offer to resolve your case that's going to end in conviction, which you may not have gotten in the first place. So now you're going to have a permanent record because you ignored it when it's something that could have been easily dealt with. Mistake number 2. Handling it yourself. You say, hey, it's just a misdemeanor, I'll figure it out. Well, Florida's complex, and the justice system is complex, and the prosecutor's not really going to care that you're from out of state. They're not going to give you special treatment because you're confused. I've seen plenty of people show up to court thinking that they can just ask the judge to dismiss this case because they didn't mean it, they're sorry, they want to take responsibility, and that's not what happens. And then they can get caught into that trap where either they get the public defender appointed or they say that they're going to hire an attorney and then the court sets it for another week or two out. And then they're either stuck in Florida or they have to fly back and then come back down. This is a mistake trying to do this on your own. It's always the case that a private attorney or a public defender is going to get you a better deal than what you would have gotten on your own because we understand the complexity of the legal system, they understand the rules of evidence, and they understand the rules of discovery. Mistake number 3 is taking the first plea offer. You might be at first appearance and think, God, I got to catch that flight. If I can just plead this and get it over with, that's the end of it, and I'll move on with my vacation. Well, that could be a huge mistake because in this scenario, let's say it was for a petty theft or it was for a driving offense. These could have consequences down the line, not only in Florida, but your home state as well. If you get convicted of a crime, especially a crime of dishonesty like petty theft, that is a crime of moral turpitude, and it can't be expunged and it can't be sealed. So when you go to apply for a job and they see, why do we have a petty theft in Florida? That's not something that you can get wiped off your record. Those are important things to consider when taking an offer made at first appearance. So here's what you can actually do. Whether you get out on pretrial release or you've posted bond and you've gone home, you can first look for a qualified, experienced criminal defense attorney in the county for which you were arrested. Do a little bit of background search, find out about them and their experience in there. And I have more about that in my book, My Loved One's Been Arrested, which is available for download. And in that, once you have secured an attorney, find out if there's any pretrial diversion programs available. Because if this is a first offense, you might be able to resolve this case and you might be able to do everything that you need to do for Florida in your home state. If you can't get that done, then you can find out if there's a resolution that will allow you to get what's called a withhold adjudication, which is no conviction in the state of Florida. That might also allow you to be able to resolve your case from far away from what's called a plea in absentia. That would allow you to fill out all the paperwork and take the plea while you're in your home state, acknowledging the rights that you have and waiving them. Those are things, again, that you can speak to your attorney about. Here's how to avoid the vacation to probation trap. First, hire an experienced criminal defense attorney, download my book, understand what is ahead of you in your particular case. Once you've hired that attorney, stay in touch with them. Make sure you go over the discovery, that you understand your rights, and find out when you actually need to come back, if at all. Make sure that you execute a waiver of presence. 3, when staying in touch with them, do proactive things that might help your case. If you're charged with petty theft, find out if there's a theft abatement course. If you're charged with a DUI, find the DUI school in your area that will qualify for Florida's DUI school. Be in contact with your attorney, find out what you can do. Lastly, don't get in any more trouble. That will be the death knell in your case. And really, most important, don't ignore it. This will come back. I've seen it time and time again. So if you want to know more information, download my guide, My Loved One's Been Arrested, What's Next? It's available on our website. And if you want to know how to hire the right attorney, then download my guide, The Top 5 Things Criminal Defense Attorneys Don't Want You to Know.